Parents, what's the weirdest thing you found in your kid's bedroom? Story 1. Many years ago. Mum. Oh, you've got your microscope set up. Let me see what you've got under there. Me. Nothing. It's just tap water. There's nothing in it. I've visibly gone white and shaking. Mum. Wrenches me aside, looks through eyepiece, refocuses, is visibly startled for a moment. Oh, for Pete's sake, Decapod. Oh, gross. I did not need to see that. Well, at least we know you're not sterile, I guess. Oh, why did you have to put that in your microscope? We're reading the same pages from the same book here. Yeah, it was what I think it was. His juices were in his microscope. Although, to be honest, I can't blame him for doing that because if I had a dong and had a microscope, I probably would do the same thing. I'd want to see him swimming around. I hope I've got the right idea here. Or am I thinking something completely different? Do let me know. Story 2. My mum once found my fish tank full of fish in my closet. I wasn't allowed to have fish. Wait, no, I'm sorry. We need more detail here. Please explain further. Why have you got a fish tank filled with fish in your closet? Are these fish alive or are they dead? That's what I want to know. And why wasn't you allowed to have fish? They're easy pets. Well, I mean, to be fair, some parents might not allow it, but please tell us. I need to know what these fish are doing in your closet. Are they even in water? What's going on? Story 3. Frick throwaways. A friend and I discovered my mum's vibrator while looting her drawers for candy and money when I was 10. I didn't really understand what it was, so I stole it to inspect later and put it in one of my junk drawers. Promptly forgot about it, and Mum never said anything about her missing naughty toy. A couple years later, I discovered my own sexuality, and also that vibrator. Used it, had my first orgasm with it, and many followed. She found it when I was 14 while looking for the phone. I was freaking mortified. As I should have been. And now, looking back on it, I'm purely disgusted with myself. Long story short, shared a naughty toy with my mother. It was big and red, and at some point, it deflated. Oh no, your mum caught you using her own naughty toy. Well, not caught you, but found you with it. So obviously she knows that you've been using it. No, that is just gross, I think. Story 4. This is about someone who rented a room in my house. She was so immature, and she was practically my kid. My boyfriend and I rented a house, and it had an extra bedroom. So we posted an ad on Craigslist, and a girl, let's call her S, replied. She'd just turned 18 and was going to college 2 minutes away from the house. She seemed like a nice girl at first. Quiet, tiny, 70 pounds tiny, and didn't mind helping out around the house. A couple weeks after she moved in, we noticed weird food items were missing. Not frozen pizzas or bread or anything. It was more like whole jars of mayo and sliced American cheese. We asked her about it and she denied she took anything. When the semester was up, she moved out and we started cleaning out her room and bathroom. When we opened the bathroom closet, this disgusting smell hit us. On the wall behind the top shelf, there were literally thousands of balls of paper towels with chewed and half-digested food inside. She would eat a jar of mayo, throw it up into this bucket we found in her bedroom closet, and make vomit snowballs, which she tossed into the closet. It took hours to scrape it all off. Absolutely disgusting. Long story short, vomit snowballs. Ugh. Guys, when I was reading that, honestly, I gagged. I fully gagged reading the bit when she was, whole tubs of mayo. I honestly can't, guys. It's making me feel queasy. Why? Why? I just want to know why. Rolling it up and then throwing it in her closet. I just don't understand. Is this some kind of fetish thing? I need to calm down after that. I really hope these don't get any worse. Story 5. My mum found a locked briefcase in my brother's room. She was convinced there was drugs in it, so she panicked, broke the locks and opened it. She found corn and fireworks. She was pretty embarrassed. Story 6. When my husband was little, talking 5 or 6 years old, his mother couldn't figure out why his room had been getting smellier and smellier over the previous 2 weeks. She finally did some searching and found a nest in the back of his closet. He'd taken 2 eggs out of the fridge, put them in a little nest he made out of his shirts, and put a plastic dinosaur on top of the eggs to attempt to hatch baby dinosaurs. In his little kid mind, this seemed like a perfectly logical idea. Oh, that's kind of cute though. I think probably the weirdest thing as a kid that I used to do was, but I think this is quite common, is where you'd gather up all the shampoo and the conditioner, the hand soaps, any kind of liquid you can find in your bathroom and mix it all together and think you're making a potion. That's probably the weirdest thing my mum found me doing. Well, the rest I'd rather not say. No, I'm joking. I can't remember. I can't actually remember anything I did that was weird. I definitely did do weird things, but this is all I can, remember right now. Story 7. Most awkward moment in my life right here. I was 18, and I took a shower before going to a 311 concert. I'd recently purchased a synthetic vagina, which was pretty freaking sweet at the time. Well, I took it in the shower with me and did my business. I got out of the shower and got dressed and got in my buddy's car to go to the show. Halfway there, I realised that I left this big fake vagina in the family shower and that I wouldn't be home till morning. When I got home the next morning, I slowly made the walk of shame to the bathroom to see that, sure enough, my partner in crime was no longer where I'd left it. I go into my room and it's wrapped in a plastic bag sitting on my desk with a note saying, "You're lucky your mother didn't find this." My dad hasn't mentioned it since. Long story short, my dad found my fake vagina and returned it in a plastic bag. Hey, round of applause for the dad though, gang. Round of applause for the dad. You've got to love that, haven't you? Because if that was me and my brother found it or something, he would absolutely ruin my life. He'd tell mum, dad, my friends, the rest of the family, the whole lot. So you've got to love that from the dad, because you did get off, didn't you? You got off that lightly. Slight embarrassment, obviously, that your dad found that. But all in all, pretty good ending to a horrible situation, I'd say. Story 8. My $2,500 plus gaming system and desk, which was on a different floor in the house entirely, just walked in from work one day and noticed it missing. I was about to freak out when I saw that my 10-year-old and almost 16-year-old had moved it, and the entire contents, up to their room. Thought about it for a few minutes, not even upset when I noticed how much more room it gave me downstairs, and hatched a plan. When he turned 16 a week later, I said, "Happy birthday, it's yours now," and purchased him $100 worth of games on Steam to rock the system with it. Now I'm planning a nice gaming laptop for myself. Story 9. A friend in high school made a homemade penis pump out of some tubing, a plastic tube and some other parts. His mum was cleaning his room one time and found it. She freaked out and was holding it in his face when he got home that day, screaming, "Is this drug? Is this drugs?" He denied it was drugs and said it was just some junk he was messing with. Pardon the pun, if you don't mind. Wink, wink. Story 10. My mother went through my room and found the guide to getting it on. The thickest sex manual ever. Tips on everything. I was 13. I bought it with a friend. We were just curious about it. When confronted, I blamed my friend, and after that my mum never approved of me hanging out with her. Story 11. Recently I found a green piece of folded paper on the floor of my 11-year-old daughter's room. I opened it and the only thing written on it was Chuck Norris. You see, sometimes I think when parents are looking in their kids' rooms, they're going to find things they don't want to find as well, and things that just genuinely won't have any explanation at all behind it. Kids are weird. Kids are very weird. I used to collect some strange things when I was younger, but I have no idea why. Do you know what I mean? Guys, did you collect anything strange as a kid that you can remember? Leave it in the comments, I want to know. Story 12. Not a parent, but I once found a naked Barbie, bound and gagged, in a shoebox under my 9-year-old sister's bed. The shoebox had a window cut out with rubber band bars and was lined with blankets. My sister's now 17, and no, I've never asked her about it. Jeez, what's going through that little lady's mind? Actually, hold up, I don't think I want to know. Story 13. A girl I knew told me that when she was 12, she made a dildo out of a ping pong ball superglued to the end of a marker. I have no idea. Her dad flipped out when he found it and threw it away. She was so upset she threatened to go on Oprah and tell her and the world that he ruined her life. Story 14. I'm not a parent. I'm the babysitter. But one time I watched a 6-year-old Jewish girl who was really upset about not celebrating Christmas. Her parents were really orthodox and didn't let her sing Christmas carols or even eat candy canes. As I tucked her in, she showed me a little gingerbread house she made out of saltine crackers, Skittles, and peanut butter. Cutest thing I ever saw. And I never told her parents, as she would have gotten in trouble. But she was something special. Story 15. My mum, as a joke when I was 15, grabbed a bunch of condoms and lube packets from an AIDS prevention table at a concert and put them in my purse. We laughed. I got home and was curious about the edible strawberry lube, so I opened it up, smelled it, and threw it away without a second thought. Come home from school and my dad's home. Weird, I thought. I walk in and he's shaking, holding the wrapper. He'd Googled the brand to figure out what it was. He's scared and panicking. I told him mum gave it to me as a joke. Call her. Luckily, she saved me. My poor dad has never looked more relieved. Oh, that is a horrible time, I tell you. A horrible time when your dad realizes you're, beginning. Ugh, that was one of the worst times of my life, I think. I don't know why, but it is always okay with mum, but with dad, it's just like unbearably uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean? Story 16. Not my kid, but my friend was babysitting his brother, about 10 at the time, and heard him talking to someone upstairs. He goes up to investigate and asks who he was talking to, and he immediately runs to the closet door and stands in front of it going, No one's here, go away. Open the closet door to find another 10-year-old boy in nothing but his underwear hiding under stuffed animals. So much what the frick. Okay, so here's the full story. We don't know. I was there at the time it happened, and we think while we were out back smoking, he brought him in. When he found him, he yelled, What the frick? His brother was crying at this point because he thought he was in serious trouble. And me and our other friend came running up the stairs and just kind of stared slack-jawed at what was happening. The other kid got dressed really quickly and just bolted out the house. Weird thing was, we never found out his name or where the hell he was from. He wasn't one of his normal friends and we never saw him again. We could never coax the story out of him about what was happening either, but we suspect it was more harmless than our 17-year-old minds imagined it to be. Believe me, to this day I still have tons of questions about what happened. I think he told his mum, but she was a terrible parent, so she just kind of laughed about it and didn't really question him. Story 17. I found a chunk of brown sugar the size of my fist under my 4-year-old's bed. My daughter likes to sneak candy or cookies into her room when my wife and I aren't looking, but this was a first. This is quite strange, actually. A fun fact about me. I never actually liked sweets as a child. Like, when you're in your prime time sweet era as a kid, I never liked them. So when everyone else was going to the shop to get sweets, I would be buying, like, packets of tomatoes on the vine and, like, green beans, mange too, loads of stuff, just veg. Like, I'd just be buying fruit and veg, and the kids would be like, Are you okay? Even my mum was like, Who is this kid? But yeah. Anyone else? Story 18. I recently had to move back in with my parents because I couldn't afford university and accommodation of my own at the same time. Before I moved back, I had a pretty active sex life with people of both genders, and I've been out to everyone for years, except my parents. My dad's a pretty conservative Scotsman, and my mum was brought up in India with a whole different set of acceptable societal norms. Anywho's, my mum regards herself as having the right to rifle through my stuff under the pretense of cleaning. One day I was sitting working in my room with her cleaning. I'd pretty much just accepted she was going to do this regardless of what I said by this point. When I heard her ask, What's this? I turned round to find her holding one of my prostate massagers, clearly with no clue what it was. Now, I'm an open person, and I especially like being a bit too open with my parents, as their reactions, as people of a conservative nature, are often pretty funny. However, I knew that admitting to having an object that I regularly stick up my butt for pleasure would spark the old, Are you gay? Argument, which would lead to the inevitable, Are gays of any value to society? Argument. So I blatantly lied and told her it was a sculpture I'd picked up abroad. She seemed happy with this and polished it with a cloth and some pledge. Honestly, I think I'd have been less embarrassed if it was a fleshlight or something. That is clever though, telling her it's a sculpture. I mean, if it's not like immediately obvious, they're not going to know, so I wouldn't think that would embarrass me that much, to be fair. But then I suppose when you know what it is inside, it is like inwardly embarrassing, isn't it? And that sometimes projects outwards as well, so then you'd seem embarrassed and then it would just spark loads of questions. But yeah, no, I think you got away with that one very well, to be fair. I've never heard of a prostate massager either. Story 19. Not a parent, but a nanny. I found a stash of dresses and makeup under a 5-year-old boy's bed. He'd raided a box of old clothes that their mother was donating and took his sister's dresses that fit him. He found the correct sizes for his age and everything. He said he used it to be a sassy girl. Story 20. Not a parent, but once I went into my sister's room for Sprite and ended up finding her fun from the night before. She'd snuck a very large man into her room. She was nowhere to be found, just me, a very small girl, and a huge man. No Sprite. See, I don't understand the bravery of these girls that do that. I could never, when I was younger, I would have never been brave enough to sneak a bloke into my room. There was absolutely no chance I would even try it. My dad was far too scary for that. So when I read stories like this, or when I hear stories, I'm just like, what? Like, you even attempted that? You are brave, honey. Story 21. Yes, this is the type of comment that deserves a throwaway. When I was younger, around 2 or 3 years old, I had an irrational fear of my mum getting upset when I'd soil my underwear. Plus, I didn't want to go back to diapers. So what did I do? Every time I'd poo myself, I'd dispose of my undies into the corner of my closet and close the door behind me. I had no idea what was going through my infantile mind, but it was a good idea at the time. It grew into a rather large, horrifying mound. You can imagine the horror on my mother's face the day she smelled something and followed that trail to the closet. I watched as she cried. Story 22. Probably a bit late to the show, but here's my story. Throwaway for reasons. While cleaning my daughter's room, my wife found a dildo. No big deal, right? But this dildo looked familiar. This dildo was my wife's. Okay, that's not a huge deal. A little weird, but we can move on. Or can we? My wife only has one dildo. This dildo was a requested present to her from me. She wanted this specific one because I go away on work trips for 3 to 6 months at a time on occasion. This dildo is from a mould of my own pee. That's right. I said my daughter had taken my wife's dildo that is moulded to be my pee. Long story short, my daughter stuck my pee mould inside of her. No! My head is in my hands, guys. My head is in my hands. Please never tell your daughter about this. Please never tell her, because it will ruin her, okay? It will fully ruin her. That has literally made me twitch and roll up. Ugh. Story 23. This will probably get lost under the endless comments here, but it's a funny story anyway. Also, it wasn't a parent that found this. I went to summer camp here in my home country of Switzerland. It was held at a boarding school, so we basically stayed in dorms. Anyway, they would take us to the city for the weekend to do a bit of shopping and hang out. One weekend I didn't go, but my Greek friend did. While hanging out with some girls, I'm a guy, my friend returns with his backpack and beckons me away from them. We walk a short distance away with his back turned towards the girls, and he unzips the backpack and pulls out the most massive black dildo one could imagine. Being 13, this was basically the funniest and most random thing he could have shown me. Okay, so about a week later, there was some theft that went down in the building we stayed in. Naturally, the director of the camp came and searched everybody's rooms. Fortunately for me, I just happened to be in my friend's room while they were conducting the search. I also knew that he kept the dildo in his medicine cabinet in the bathroom. Don't ask me why he did this. After searching most of the room, he goes to the bathroom. Standing behind him, I watch him open the medicine cabinet, and along with a few corn mags, is the 12-inch dildo standing straight up, practically laughing along with me at how ridiculous the whole situation was. The director pauses for a sec at the otherwise empty cabinet and shuts it. The only thing he says after this is, "Nothing here, I see. Thanks." And then he leaves. This still leaves me in stitches thinking about it. Story 4. I'm not a parent, but I used to work at a state mental hospital with teenage boys. One of the boys was obsessed with a guy that worked there and stole one of his shoes, took it into his room, and raped it. I caught him in the act. Story 25. I'm the kid here, but when I was 12, my mum found a shoebox full of blood-soaked socks under my bed. I'd gotten my period and was too embarrassed to ask what to do, so I just, socks. I don't know what she thought it was, but the fact that she was relieved when she learned she was holding a shoebox full of menstrual blood and ruined peds is probably telling. Oh, I remember that feeling. My first period. Now, that was a very strange day, but I'm very grateful that I have very supportive parents. Well, I didn't want my dad to know, obviously, but my mum was very supportive and helped me through that. So thankfully, I wasn't shoving socks in there, but I mean, we've all been there. When you get your first one, it's very embarrassing and weird. I actually felt like I was about 80 years old, but I was like, I'm so old now, I've got my period. Story 26. My dad works in the paper business. While growing up, he would always bring home giant pieces of paper for me and my brothers to illustrate and scribble on. The last time I can ever remember drawing on any of the said paper, I was in middle school. It was a blueprint-sized piece of paper, and I spent days on the most elaborate naked blonde woman, sitting totally spread eagle, using her fingers to spread herself even more open. It was a ridiculous illustration that I used coloured pencils and crayons to make look as real as possible. I even signed it, in the corner, like a real artist would. I kept it rolled up and hidden in my closet, which was a complete mess. While on the way home from a summer camp later that year, my parents told me that they cleaned out my closet for me. I'm 31 years old now, and when I think about it, there is absolutely no way that they didn't unroll it to see what it was before they threw it away. They've never mentioned it, and I will probably never ask them about it. Cool, how much detail did you go into with this picture? Kind of want to see it. But no, seriously, you sound like the next kind of Picasso. Story 27. My parents were a bit confused when they looked in my closet, found an anatomically correct wooden arm with metal bracket joints and elastic to move the individual fingers. I took make an anatomical model of the arm a bit too literally in my 6th grade science class and felt really dumb holding a working wooden arm in class when everyone else had drawings. I was hiding it because I used the power tools without permission. My parents were pretty cool about it after I explained why I had a wooden body part in the closet and let me go to an engineering tech school part-time alongside high school for a few years. Story 28. My 19-year-old daughter came home for college break. One morning, she was out of the house and I went into her room to gather towels of the laundry. Her laptop was on the dresser next to her bed, and on the screen was a hardcore bondage corn, paused. On the floor next to her bed, I saw 3 vibrators, a dildo, a jar of Vaseline, and 3 Gatorade bottles full of a yellowish liquid I could only assume was urine, all of which were sitting in the middle of a large wet spot in the carpet, which I'd stepped on and had soaked through my sock. I slowly backed out of the room without the towels and never spoke a word of it to anyone until today. I will admit, it's now sometimes difficult to keep a straight face when she's acting good in 2 shoes. Whoa, no. Okay, that is an absolute lineup of tools. Okay? The Vaseline, the 3 vibrators, etc., etc. That is a big old lineup, center stage, and your dad's front row. Yeah, that's not going to work for me. I suppose she doesn't have a clue he knows, but it's soaked through to his sock. And why were you filling up urine in bottles? I've never heard of that before. Someone please explain for me, please. Story 29. I'm the child in this situation, but I'll share anyway. My mother decided to clean my room while I was away in college. The night before I went back, my girlfriend had stayed over. My mother cleaned and picked up a tub of KY jelly, an empty condom box, and a dong ring and put them away in my wardrobe. I didn't notice until I was at home a few weeks later and looking for my stuff and it was all neatly stacked. What made it more awkward was I brought a few more dong rings to college that weekend. Upon returning again, my mother decided to be nice and do my laundry for me. Great. She took everything out of my suitcase except 2 dong rings and left them there, in an open suitcase, in the kitchen, of all places. It wasn't that awkward at first, but anytime she mentioned my laundry, she sighed and let on as if she was disappointed. Or maybe she didn't really give a poo and she just wanted to make me feel awkward. Either way, I try to be a little more cautious lately of what I leave lying around because she's a neat freak and most certainly doesn't want to be dealing with dong rings that has... sometimes I think parents ask for it because it's like, depending on what age you are, right? Let's say you're a teenager, okay? Things are going to start happening. And as parents, and expect that. And if you're going to be in their room cleaning, then I think you're asking for it, personally. You might even be looking for it, but it's your own fault, parents. Stay out of that darn kid's room. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more videos coming daily.